In February of 2022, we were sitting in Tim's house in North Carolina searching for the answers of what to do next. We had just found out that our Medicare contracts were going to be held for the next 12 months, which completely crushed our dreams of being a Medicare tech startup. With plastic wrapping covering holes on our floor from a flooding incident that happened in the house, and no heat the entire winter so that we could save money to invest in our business. Things felt hopeless. Flash forward 12 months, and we've been able to help thousands of agents change the courses of their businesses by generating their own leads. We were even able to give away $10,000 in cash at our in-person event. In this video, we're gonna share with you the story of advanced agent marketing. How we went from living in a house without heat, door dashing, and waiting tables for money to changing the way that insurance is sold. But first, you're gonna need some background.
All right, so we have some notes here on the laptop. Basically, we're just gonna kind of go back and forth, kind of do this like a little bit podcast style, just so you guys can kind of understand our background and where we come from. But I'm gonna let Julian start off with telling his background of how he actually got into the insurance business and a little bit on his upbringing and all of that.
One thing that I always really enjoyed was talking to people, because I was homeschooled, and so I was kind of like isolated as a kid. My mom wouldn't let me play video games. I didn't have a phone or anything, so I had to call somebody who was gonna be my cousin, and I would call him up on the home phone, on the landline back when that was in, and I would play on a computer like a little pirate game. This was my whole social life as a kid. When I actually got to talk to someone, it was super refreshing. I was homeschooled up until 8th grade when I transitioned over, and then I realized I absolutely hated school. And it wasn't because I hated learning, because I love learning, but I just didn't like the public school environment. It's very restricted. Tell you that businesses are not gonna happen. You can't have wild ideas, and I've always been someone who's always on some other level of ideas that people think is just completely out there.
Yeah.
I think you're kind of the same way.
100%.
But I didn't really have a plan going out of school. My whole thing was I knew I wanted to get into real estate, and I wanted to be a businessman and do all this stuff and passive income and you know, whatever. Basically the insurance industry, but I didn't know it existed. It was crazy. I thought to myself, I was okay, so I got no cash, I got no network, no connections, what can I do? So I was shit, I'm gonna go to the military, get connections, get some cash, and then 4 years later I can either come out or I can invest in doing rental properties while I'm in there. And that's a noble job, whatever, that'd be pretty cool. Trying to do that for 3 years while simultaneously working in gym sales and waiting tables. So yeah, that's how we met. Before I did gym sales, I was in real estate. I had a 6-month post-military attempt at real estate that went super poorly. Had a bunch of random people tell me I was too young. I had way baby facer than now. Yeah. It was I literally had a coworker that called me baby face when I was waiting tables. It was rough. Got into waiting tables, gym sales, loved gym sales, saw that I had a real passion for that industry. I really just like getting people to do something that was beneficial for them. So that's kind of been a staple of what it is, whatever I'm doing. I have to believe in the product. I could never sell cars. I don't view that as beneficial. It's transportation, but do they need it? Probably not. So I've always wanted to do something fitness-based or health-based, finance-based, with insurance. And while I was waiting tables, I actually got picked up by a guy. Yeah. I think you remember this.
You got picked up?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean, you know how it is with these MLM guys. This dude came swinging through at my job, and he's like, hey man, leaning in, hey man, you look like a hard worker, man. What are your dreams? I remember he said exactly, it rubbed me the wrong way. He was do you want to be a waiter forever, or do you want to build a future? So he said something like that, and I was just I hated the way that he presented it, but I was I'll answer his question, because he'd been nice the whole night, so it didn't come off as extra rude or anything. And from there, ended up at a webinar, saw the comp plan, said I'm in, you know, and then I told you and everyone else about it. I think that what sparked this whole journey.
Yeah, 100%. So, way I got to insurance, and this is going super back. So, when I was younger, I was decent at school, because I was always kind of in the accelerated classes, but I just thought it was a waste of time. And I was always super lazy with assignments. I learned that I could wing things when I was in 5th grade, and that was the entire world opened up to me. I would just bullshit every assignment that I did. I never did homework, none of it. I was still decent at school. I would get A's and B's, and then got into high school. I was committed to going to college. I wanted to be a lawyer, if you can imagine that. And then all of a sudden I realized this doesn't make any sense at all. I started watching e-commerce videos on YouTube, I'm sure a lot of people have seen, the drop shipping, all that kind of stuff. Got into that. I saw people that were maybe a few years older than me, seeing a ton of success with that, and I was all right, well, let me have a try of this. So started doing that a bit, failed a million times, at least 20 times I failed trying to do that. So I had multiple failures. My sophomore year, I got my first job. I was waiting tables at a Greek restaurant, and that was kind of when I got my first taste of money. Because up until then, I was the kid that whenever I got got $1, like it left my pocket. Like I literally would borrow money from my sister at when the ice cream truck came by.
Like fractional reserve banking? Or?
Absolutely. Like she would save her money like from her birthday or whatever, and I would just be like, yo, let me get 5 on hand ever. And then my junior year of high school, I was still waiting tables, saving money. I was like into the whole investing, kind of getting into all that. And I had this idea because there was going to be a massive snowstorm coming to our hometown in Greensboro. And I was like, dude, like we're not going to be open at the restaurant. And I was trying to put as much money away as I could. So I was like, all right, I need to supplement some income. So I get one of my best friends at the time, and we decide we're going to basically plan out this whole driveway shoveling business over the next few days to supplement our money because we were working at the same restaurant. So we put together this whole thing. We start posting on Nextdoor, and we end up having like a freaking like massive business like spring up overnight. Like I think we did like 5K in rev in like 4 days. And this was at a point, like I was a high schooler. That was the most money I'd ever seen. Wake up to the crack ass of dawn with a shovel, go out and shovel the whole day. My back would be sore. Get up and do it the next day. And I was just like addicted.
Was it hustle, or were you like charging high ticket? Like with these high ticket driveways, or are you going in like $40, like just cranking it out, you and your boy?
No, not $40. It was 13 inches of snow, which like in the South is a lot. So everyone was panicking, and we were like the guys to go to. I had like 4 teams of people going through different yards. Like it was like my first real business. This was like December of that year. I had this idea that I was going to save $30,000 in 1 year as a 17-year-old. And I was like, I'm gonna do this shit. So I had this whole spreadsheet. I would track every expense every time I made money. And basically I was like the cheapest bastard there was. Like I wouldn't even buy a soda because like everything was going towards this 30K goal. So I did that. And while I was doing that, from the snow shoveling, I had this idea to get into lawn care. Because I was like, I have all these people and they're like, hey, if you start doing lawn care in the springtime, we'll hit you up because you did a good job. And I'm like, shit, I might need to do that. So start doing like posting jobs on Nextdoor, get like leaf removal jobs, all that kind of stuff. And I built up this business, and by springtime, I was making more money doing landscaping than I was waiting tables. And I knew that because I tracked every dollar in the spreadsheet. And so I was like, all right, at this point, I'm just gonna go full in on lawn care. So this is going like end of my junior year of high school, coming into senior year, whole summer doing lawn care. I'm in Italy with my family on a vacation, and I'm like thinking about how I can incorporate spraying for weeds into my business. And I had my friends running my business at home. I was making like 2K a week. 17 years old, mowing lawns and all that stuff. So coming to my senior year, so why would I go to high school? Because my goal at that time, I was gonna be the biggest lawn care business in Greensboro, North Carolina. Like that was my plan. And so,
could you imagine?
I mean, I probably could have done it, but like it would have been an entirely different business with less freedom. And so I realized at a certain point, because over that summer I was hiring my friends, going into my senior year where all of my friends, all my employees went back to school, I now had to actually hire like real landscaping employees. And the problem was everybody kind of sucked. Like they wouldn't show up, they would like drink on the job, and I'm this like 18-year-old kid trying to manage grown-ass adults. And this is like my future, and I'm like, I don't know if this is the move. So easing back into e-commerce, start trying that. And then at a certain point I decided like, I'm quitting this whole lawn care thing, I'm going full into e-commerce, and I'm just gonna make it work. And so I just like closed the whole business down basically over the course of like a month and a half because it just stressed me out. It's like no one would show up, I'd have to go and do it all myself, and it was awful. So went full blown into e-commerce, and all of a sudden started seeing some success. I had a store that made me like 6 figures, and this was right as COVID was happening, and I put all of the money that I was making into stocks, like right as like the dip of COVID. So I rode that whole wave back up, ended up making a pretty decent amount of money at 18, bought a house and a car, and then at a certain point I kind of just like slowed down a little bit, just because like when you start making a lot of money without having to put in a lot of effort, it kind of makes you like numb to it. So took my foot off the gas. I had a girlfriend. I was still working, but like not as hard as I was before, so the results started to slow. E-commerce store wasn't working anymore, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna find something to do. So I start doing door knocking for solar, and this was like my first taste into sales other than selling lawn care and stuff like that. Around the same time, Julian got recruited to insurance. So I was doing solar door to door, and then I see Julian gets recruited into insurance. I'm like, let's do it. So I jump on in with you. That takes us to this next part of the story where we first got started at the IMO. So when you first started, you brought on me and then your roommate at the time.
Yep. And then after that, I was like, yo, we need to get people coming in. And then you picked up your roommates at the time, I think.
One of my roommates, and then I moved the other guy in and brought both of them.
Yeah, so they both came on, and it was kind of like this
an insurance frat.
Yeah, it was like a frat. That's kind of what it was.
None of us went to college. So it was literally just like our version of the frat.
Yeah, it was like 4 dudes take on insurance, and like the guy that we were working with was like around our age. He'd actually been in a frat, so it was literally just like constant work hard, play hard, pretty much. I think I was working in insurance like probably a month and a half or so before you guys got in.
I had a few ride-alongs with you, but yeah, you started like a month and a half before.
And I was just like pounding doors.
Yep.
Realistically, like I was writing a fair amount of business, but like it was hustle. I was working so much because I had to make up for the lack of, like, I didn't have skills. Like I had skills from previous gym sales, but it was gym sales.
Yeah.
It wasn't insurance sales. There were questions that I didn't know to answer, and so every pitch was like different. I was just like throwing anything I could out there. If they're telling me no, like I'm just not leaving, like not taking no for an answer. like yeah, no, I think we're just gonna think about it. And I'd be like, gotcha, okay. So you sent this in about 3 months ago, right? Like I'm just throwing anything out there just to like keep the conversation going, and it worked. I wrote a ton of business when I first started, but it was like 6 days a week, every freaking day. I'd start door knocking 8:30, 9, and I'd go until dark.
How much of the business stuck?
In the first month, none of it. I got one policy that issued because I didn't know underwriting existed. That was pretty rough. And then this was when me and Tim went to Halifax after the first month. So the first month I like had no bread, no money.
Yeah.
And then I literally made like $300 after riding like 25 to 30K, somewhere in there. I was like on the top of the leaderboard, like number 3, number 5, week after week. I was like speaking on the conference calls and stuff. Like, I'm like, dude, like what the heck? Like, oh, I'm gonna get paid at the beginning of next month. And like, it never came. And I figured out that I didn't know what underwriting was, because like the guy sold Medicare that trained me, so I didn't ever see him ever do underwriting, and I didn't know that meant, like, I was just like, oh, he just asks, if I have any problems, like, cool, I'm just gonna put it in, yes or no.
Yeah.
And they all got referred because I was writing MM, so it was pretty miserable.
Yeah. So we go out to go to Halifax County, which is like closer to the coast of North Carolina. We stay in an Econo Lodge, which if you've never been to an Econo Lodge,
don't do it.
Look it up.
Wouldn't even look it up.
It's like a motel basically, but it was the nicest motel that we could find in this town that was like cheap. It's like $90 a night. So we stay here for like a week. We were like 3rd in the company in production. We speak on a conference call and we're just like hustling. I would call and set appointments while you were driving. Like there was no second that was wasted. We would sit in the parking lot, and this was the craziest part, is we would get a bunch of paper leads and then organize them. We would sort through every day. Sort through by the names. We'd throw them all into the route. And then
200 of them.
Through 200 leads to set the route and get each lead in order, so that when we got to the door, we could easily just reach in the folder and grab it.
Part of us driving like the 3.5 hours or whatever it was to that county, because that one was far, that's why we got a hotel. We were building the route while we were driving there to make sure that we never wasted a moment.
Yeah.
And so in this time, I came up with this rule because I realized like how it was kind of working out for whether or not we could fall behind on an appointment. Do you remember it was sit or set?
Yeah.
The 45-minute rule. So we made this 45-minute rule where if you had 45 minutes or less until your next appointment, you set the appointment. If you had 45, like a little over 45 minutes or any amount of time past 45, run the appointment. Sit with them then.
The rule was you always had to stop at dark. Otherwise you'd get shot.
Yeah, you did have to stop at dark.
So there was like almost like a risk and reward as far as like at a certain point in time, if it's like, let's say it's like 7:30 about to set in the summer, sunsets at like 8, should you run the appointment or should you set it for tomorrow? Because you can set more appointments, but if the appointment's a dud, it was a waste.
I think we dialed in some good processes there, like figuring out the door knocking process and everything.
Yep.
I don't know if I had come up with it before that. I just remember like we were hustling so hard. This is one of the reasons that I get so frustrated when like sometimes agents have no guidance around this. Like nobody tells them like, hey, you need to make X amount of calls, you need to make X amount of dials, you need to make X amount of door knocks or ask for referrals. Dude, like nobody told us. We were just doing because we didn't know like what the other option was, because the other option in our minds is just failure. And so if you're an agent, I think having like any doubt about what to do, like just dive in. That's my advice, because it works.
100%. So we go our separate ways. We start producing individually, start working, writing a bunch of business. Things are going well. We're going from coast to mountains, everywhere in between, kind of burning ourselves out. The crazy thing is though, we would work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We'd have Sunday off. We'd just play basketball or whatever, like all as a, insurance frat or whatever. Monday, we'd come into the office, have meetings. We'd find out where we were going to work, pull leads. And then the rest of the day was calling leads to set appointments for the rest of the week. So the only day we really had off was Sunday.
Sometimes, because then there was other times where I would go out with like one of the newer agents that wasn't writing as much business. That was just for us to scrum up some business to get them a paycheck, and then like continue to get more training out. And it was a hustle, 6 and 7 days a week.
Yeah, it was.
For months.
But we were selling a lot, but like after the chargebacks and the gas and everything, we weren't really profiting that much money.
No, the gas was the biggest thing too, because prices were going up. This was right when like there was like a gas shortage. I think they cut a pipeline or some craziness happened. Driving 2.5 hours one way and then door knocking the whole day gets expensive quick.
There was one like trip to the coast that we made that really sticks out to my mind. And this was my roommate's and best friend's first week. He went out, was knocking. He ended up having a 0 week, like no sales that week, because like everyone was younger. Anyway, so he goes out, the first door that he knocks, a guy puts a gun to his forehead and says, "Get off of my property." This was his first knock.
Ever.
And then
ever by himself.
He calls and tells me the story, and then he's like, "All right, bro, I gotta go. I gotta hit the next door." What?
I remember.
Crazy like that just happened like every day. Like I would get a call like that from one of our friends, and I'm like,
every single day.
I gotta hit the next door.
Yeah, I gotta hit the next door, man. Yeah. Dude, I've ran from pit bulls, Doberman, had knives pulled on me, been held at.
Try to fight me.
Had a gun on a table faced at me one time. Had another lady meet me outside with a gun. One of our other friends had like a guy like, show him like a gun, like brandish a gun like multiple times. The craziest part was I got hit by 2 18-wheelers in the same week. First, I got hit and run by the first 18-wheeler. He dropped a telephone pole on a bridge. On either side was water, so the only choice was to hit the telephone pole. I ended up stranded with no phone service, me and his roommate at the time, and closest place, an hour and 20 minutes away, with no like traffic coming on. There wasn't even hitchhiking here. And then 2 days later, I get T-boned by another 18-wheeler after getting that fixed. Ended up missing like 2 days of appointments, and then got a rental to get back at it next week until the car was fixed. Oh my gosh.
So here's where things get interesting. So at this point, the reason we had actually gotten into the business is because we wanted to sell Medicare. That was a big piece of why we wanted to be there. So at this point, it was August. To be able to sell by OEP, which is in October, we needed to be certified by September so we could get all of the appointments with the carriers, right? We were frustrated with our upline for not, being as urgent with us getting certified as we were. So
there was a scheduled Monday time where we were gonna do that every Monday. And it wasn't even like we needed help doing it. We just needed the directions and what to do.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't tell us.
Yeah.
For like 9 weeks, 11 weeks, something crazy.
It was insane. So at this point, I hadn't even been paid in weeks because of chargebacks. Still running like a little bit. We were still making sales, but like the chargebacks were so crazy and the expenses were so high, we were making like literally no money. And I hadn't been paid in like 3 months from my check because the chargebacks would swallow up the new business I wrote.
Oh my.
Like I even wrote an annuity. I wrote an annuity and didn't get paid on it.
Bro.
Because of the chargeback.
I remember this too. It was so crazy. The amount of chargeback you get when you give out gift cards to seniors on a fixed income. And like by this time.
That was the only reason they sent in a mailer, bro.
Oh, of course.
90% of the time.
And like by this time, I had more luck with chargebacks but like before, it was the same thing for me as it was for Tim in this period. It was like the same time frame of like learning curve where you're just getting beaten to crap. Like you're a pinata of chargebacks.
I mean, we were still like, we had written a lot of business. We had like 200K in our first 6 months, like between the two of us.
Well, we were writing about like on average, like 25 to 30K a month each.
Yeah.
So we were going crazy, and this was before we even hit Medicare, right?
Yeah.
The fact that we weren't making money with this was like
insane.
Nuts.
Yeah, it was insane.
And our compensation was at 50.
And so at this point, I came to you with the idea that we should start generating our own leads because like the quality of what we were working was just so low. I wanted to work in a closer area. Like we were driving 3 or 4 hours to where we would go work.
To work gift card leads, and most of them are recycled.
Yeah, most of them are recycled. So it was insane.
5 and 6 years old, like this stuff is crazy.
So we're like, all right, let's start generating our own leads. Like I had done Facebook in the past with my background in e-commerce and all that. And I was like, I think I can figure this out. And like we're at a lower comp to get free leads. We were gonna generate the leads on our own, pay for them, and then still be at the low comp. And then help the company roll this out. We talked to our upline and tell them the idea. And then all of a sudden, Julian, you got a call the next day, right?
Yeah, I presented this idea to the regional sales director at the time. Or no, he was the regional sales vice president.
Yeah.
Because he was like higher up.
Yeah.
And I was like, yo, like, we need to all get on a call and do this. And then I get a call, like,
he was receptive to it.
He was super receptive. And then like the next day I get a call, like I get woken up and I'm like finding out like there's drama on they're saying like there's drama on your team and all this stuff. And I'm like, what is happening right now? It was so confusing because like it was a complete 180. I'd never seen this side of them and they were freaking out about Facebook ads.
Yeah.
I didn't even know what they meant by drama. I thought something happened.
Yeah. And so they were just like terrified by the fact of us running Facebook ads. And we have a call with me, Julian, our upline's upline, who is the RSVP, and the CEO of the company, all on a call. Like they start the call off with, boys, I just want to tell you guys, this is a good call, not a bad call. And we're just like thinking to ourselves, like, why would this be a bad call? Like we're coming to you with an idea to help us get more leads.
And just to let you like guys know, they said when they met us on numerous occasions, like you guys are crazy producers, you guys are freaking studs. If you have any ideas, bring them to us. We're always receptive. Like this was built on other people's ideas.
Yeah. That was the way that everything was framed. So we were super excited about it, came to them, and then just completely shut it down. So anyway, we have this call, we get off the call, and we're just like, we call each other right afterwards, and we're like, how did you think that call went? I don't even know where to start. Like it made no sense.
It made no sense at all.
So anyway, after this call, we're just kind of like reflecting on it, talking about what happened, shooting basketball, kind of piecing the puzzle pieces together. And we're joking about like, what would happen if we started our own marketing agency with Facebook ads and put direct mail out of business? It's like just a joke. You're like, let's get real. That would never happen. And funny, flash forward today. But so at this point, we're kind of a bit frustrated with them, and we decide that we're going to leave and go start our own Medicare agency.
This was an interesting situation because once we told everyone that we were leaving, we told our upline like, yo, we're out.
Yep.
Basically, we're like, hey, so we're all leaving. Like group walkout, basically. We're going on strike. He's like, oh, okay, gotcha. What is your plan? And then starts like telling us a bunch of things that aren't even accurate in the industry. And quite literally calls the CEO, calls his upline, which is our upline's upline, the RSVP, and like turns us into a whole kit and caboodle, 8 hours in a conference room. They buy us lunch. They're like telling us the whole time that like what we're doing doesn't exist. It won't work. They're threatening to take our renewals away. And then they're saying
we're gonna go to jail for trying to generate leads.
They were pitching us on the dream of getting ownership in the company and stuff, and like
throwing away $40 million.
It didn't really make any sense. Like it just kind of was all really scattered and disorganized, and like it was weird. One of the guys was like
crying.
Yeah, I've been in like a few MLMs, and that was the weirdest situation I've ever been in. This only happens in these types of environments, I think. Like I don't think this happens in corporate America.
No.
But
after we leave, we have a few days. Turns out it snows again. We just left. We weren't going to sell insurance for a while. We knew this. At this time, we were wrestling between what to do because there was like a broker side of this same agency, and then also like their career model with the free leads.
Well, keep in mind, we don't know that what they're saying is dishonest at the time.
Yeah, we don't know anything. We're so green.
They won't tell us anything either.
And so we're just like trying to investigate and find out more things so we can figure out where we want to build our agency, which was going to be the Medicare agency, like who we want to do that under. We're researching, looking at a few different companies, and we, anyway, it snows at this point. So we decided to go and, I revert back to my roots. We do a snow shoveling business. There was a lot more ice this time. So like we still made money, but it wasn't as good as the first time I did it. Afterwards, we had a bunch of meetings set up with people from different agencies. So one of them was David Duford. One of them was going to be in Alabama. And so we decided to set off on this road trip, and we drive down to Chattanooga. We meet with David.
Well, we met some sketchy dude that was living in Israel or something, and he was living in Jerusalem.
Like calls with people.
They were all super sketchy. And so we ended up, if we're gonna do this, we're gonna meet people in person. Like this is way too sketchy.
Yeah.
That's how we met David, and then the other guy.
We have a story about that. The video called "Watch This Before We Work with David Duford." I'm sure pop it up on the screen somewhere where we tell that whole story. But we were in Alabama, and we decided, like, you know what? What if we just drove across the country? Because at this point, we both wanted to move and leave where we were. And so we're like, what if we just drove across country, see different cities, and decide where we want to live, like on a whim? closed packed for 3 days, and then
I think it was 2 days.
For 2 days.
Yeah, I don't even think I had 3 days. I had like a pair of pants and shorts.
And we just start driving out west. So we go Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, all the way out west to Arizona, up to Utah and back. And at this point, this is where we decided that we wanted to live in Arizona. We were between a bunch of different cities, decided we were gonna live in Arizona. We come back to North Carolina just like ready to go. Like we are energized, inspired, we know where we wanna be. It's just time to like pour into our work and go. So we decided we wanna go with David. We decided that's where we're gonna put our contracts. And so we request for a release.
After being told we would get one.
After being told we would get one.
After being told we would get one.
And we're like, all right, let's do this thing. We request a release, and then all of a sudden, we get denied.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy moment because we've been told that we would get them released, and at that time it was pretty insane because there was no clear answer as to why, since they'd previously told us they would. And so when we asked them like what was up, it was a different story every time. I mean, it got down to the point where after leaving the company, I had multiple people from other teams try to recruit me to their team, call me up. I had multiple other people ask me like what happened and why I was trying to recruit people after leaving and things. And like they were just basically telling like everyone that I used to talk to like at work, all these random things about me and Tim. He was ringleader Tim, and I was the pack mule. I was the slave force that was gonna drive the business forward. It was pretty crazy.
So we find out they're holding our contracts, some for 6 months, some for a year. Like the main contract that you need to sell Medicare, we weren't gonna have until 2023. And so we're like, all right, what do we do? So we had already started posting on YouTube and building like a very like small following for this Medicare agency. We were gonna do like organic leads and stuff. That was all gone, that was crushed. So we decide, all right, let's revert back to the roots, and we decided to start trying e-commerce again. So we had a couple different stints and stores we did. All of that totally flopped, failed, nothing came of it. And I remember I was like cleaning my house one day, watching some videos on YouTube, and I remembered the conversation we had a few months before about the marketing agency. I'm like, what if we started generating leads for ourselves, because we were gonna have the life insurance contracts in a few weeks.
Going back to selling life.
But what if we decided to generate them for other people in the meantime, and then once we get our contracts back, we can just use our own leads and sell. So we go down that rabbit hole, meet with David, and basically he agrees to let us go on his channel and talk about what we're gonna do if we can get a success story. So our first step was to find someone who would let us generate leads for them.
And we had no contracts, so we couldn't even do it ourselves.
Yeah, no contracts, couldn't do it ourselves. And so we meet with a couple different agents. We decide that we're gonna do it for this one lady. And we start, and it just completely flops. It's like $40 a lead. We tried to do this like complex landing page where we sent them through all these videos to make them like the highest intent leads. And she got like 2 leads and they were $40 a pop. And one of them was another life insurance agent filling it out just to see what it was. So we're like, we go back to the drawing board, tweak a few things, make a few tests, run it back.
Keep in mind, this was her money.
This was her money. So we literally we told her like, oh, we're gonna kill it. We know what we're doing. And we thought we did, we didn't. And so we pay her all of her money back for her ad spend. So at this point, we were running her ads for free already.
We were paying to run her ads.
Now we're paying to run her ads. So we make some tweaks and then relaunch them. And all of a sudden, like it just freaking kills it. We were getting leads for under $2. This is where the 77-cent leads came in, and she's just getting like so many leads she can't even work them all. Like 40 leads a day.
She can't even breathe.
Yeah, she can't even breathe. And so she ends up selling a few policies, ends up with a 14x return on her ad spend.
14.92 to be exact. I remember because it was like the first time that we hit like a ballpark grand slam.
Calculated the numbers, we were like, holy.
We realized we hit a gold mine.
So we decided, all right, so let's share this and teach people how to do it. And so our initial idea was, with the current course that we had, we were gonna do a 30K in 30 days challenge, where basically people paid us $1,000 and we would teach them how to go from nothing on self-generated leads to 30K in 30 days. But there was a caveat to it. And that was if they hit 30K in 30 days, we would give them all their money back and send them on a vacation and give them a trophy. And then we realized that was a terrible idea. So we killed that, and then we just stuck with the course part of it.
That idea was so bad.
We started DMing a bunch of people on Facebook. We would post stuff in David Duford's insurance forums. We'd make YouTube video responses to that and started building the YouTube channel.
LinkedIn DMs.
At this point, like nobody was interested in like what we were offering.
We had no reputation.
We just had this one case study where we got this lady a 14x return.
Yeah.
We decided to lower the price of everything, and we just started offering it as a course. And then after our our first video with Do Ford went live, like we kind of like popped up onto the map and just things just took off from there. And at this point, we were still planning on like selling ourselves, but there was such a demand from what we were doing that we literally just had to focus all of everything on the lead gen side.
Well, we were even like, and leading up to this, we were like starting to sell on them because people were talking about like self-gen leads and whether or not they worked. So we were like, well, dude, I mean, we know these work. Why don't we just go run them? And then we got the video up and everything. So like we were literally in the process of selling it, and then things start to like really pop off.
Yeah.
It was insane.
Yeah, it went crazy. A few months later, we create the Facebook group, Insurance Agent Freedom. It was so small when we started, like 20 people. If you guys were in the group when we first started, you remember this, but like way, like came from literally like 20 people. And so we started, you know, just continuing to offer value, continuing to grow the program, add to the Facebook group. We went live in the Facebook group, did all kinds of stuff.
I remember our first live.
I do remember our first live. That was something else.
It was so bad.
After a few months of just doing that, you know, we continued to give away a ton of value. Things just started taking off. We had more and more agents like just killing it with generating their own leads. Case study after case study, agent after agent, just like killing it. And so we started scaling everything up. We started running ads to the Facebook group and just continuing to do what we did best. Started offering like a done with you, done for you type program where we basically set up ads for people, and just the case studies came in even heavier at that point. I mean, that's pretty much what's happened over the past few months. We've just continued doing what we're doing, doubling down and helping more agents, you know, generate their leads and change their business.
And pretty much like from today forward, our goal is to make as many millionaires in this industry as possible and really help as many agents achieve insurance agent freedom, where they're not outrunning the chargebacks constantly or hearing stupid things like, I thought it was free, I didn't know this was about insurance, I didn't think I was going to talk to anyone, or having to waste basically realistically like a year of their life just sitting in homes talking to people for them to charge back after they get their gift card. I drove 45 minutes out to the opposite way to give her gift card, and she charged back the next day.
Yeah.
Like this stuff was ridiculous, and
insane.
It's been a super
crazy ride.
It's been a crazy ride, but like being able to help people get on track that don't know any better the same way that we did is so awesome. I talked to a guy yesterday who was on 30-point compensation.
Yeah.
He just was like, oh.
Yeah. No, when you're
out there,
it's hard to see it, but
it really is.
Yeah, and that's the story for everyone who's been wondering. Like, that's where we came from. That's how the business got started, and ultimately where we go from here. Just make as many millionaires as possible, and keep, you know, helping people generate leads, and eventually, you know, make some bigger plays and go from there. Thank you guys so much for watching. I know this is a little bit longer than like the normal videos that we do, but we kind of wanted to just give you guys like the entire story, just dump everything on the table, so you guys know, how it got started, where we came from, and where we go from here. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you in the next one. Peace.